I'd like to introduce Jason Lau, who is a photographer with enormous experience, but we cross paths because of your fashion photography work and working in that space. And I wanted to give you an insight, go behind the scenes into how fashion shoots all come together. But before we do, can you give us an insight into what fashion photography is and what's the point of a photo shoot?
Yeah, okay. Well, I love shooting fashion because it's all about bringing a lot of different talents together. And one of the things I've found is when I've shot for myself that I always do better when I shoot within a team. And I think that's what attracted me to shooting fashion, because there was this sort of level of aesthetics that I wanted to achieve. And I could only do that through working with experienced people from other parts of the industry as well. And I find that experience of pulling together a shoot really rewarding, and just sort of seeing the fashion product. I guess when we finish our shoots is something that's really exciting, and I love being able to explore all the different genres within fashion photography as well. So it's never just one thing. So every time I shoot, I feel like there's so much more to explore.
Yeah. You touched on something there that's always been important to me, which is, and I think you actually helped me to really understand that, and that's that as a stylist, our role is quite singular, and we can have a specific vision, but we can only execute so much of that ourselves. And it's not until we collaborate and come together as a team that a vision is really brought to life. We start with a mood board and really brainstorming ideas of how a shoot might look and come together. But fashion is, while as a stylist I know that it's a very important component, it really is just one. So what are some of the other critical things that make for a successful shot, which is the thing we're always looking for?
I think when you're looking at how to create a successful fashion shoot, I actually try and picture what I want to finish with. And that may sometimes change, but I try and start with what do I want to communicate through my final product. Is it a sense of elegance, style, strength, vulnerability, beauty? And from that, I try and then work backwards. How do we pull together these different components to create this final product? So when I'm shooting, I try and help everyone see what we're trying to achieve. And I don't try and sort of strangle the idea into it. If some ideas want to naturally breathe and evolve, but we all try and start with a particular concept first, and then seeing what we as a group can achieve from that goal.
Yeah, I think as a group is what is so rewarding, and also requires a lot of flexibility and creativity, but I think in that also a strength that is challenging to achieve on your own. And you might be watching this having never ever styled a photo shoot or even been on a set before, and I think it can sound easy when someone with as much experience as Jason can talk through that. But in order for us to take everyone along with us, what would you say is, from, if it was your first day on a photo shoot, what are the sorts of things that you're noticing, you're seeing, you're hearing that really make for that amazing experience?
Yeah. Look, it's always exciting when you're part of a photo shoot, and at the start of the day, everyone arrives, everyone is sort of getting to know each other. And that's actually a big deal, because sometimes the group itself have never sat together as a group before. So we're trying to understand the dynamics. We're trying to understand sort of what everyone's personalities are like, what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are, and things like that. And hopefully, if you are there, you're there because you want to do the best job you can. And I think that it's a good thing to try and at least start with that level of trust. Like you are there because you want to do a good job. What I try and do as a photographer is actually try and be a little bit involved in everyone's roles, so that there's a sense of coordination. Because when I say something like let's do something really high end, that can land in a person's mind in very different ways, and I try and sort of start the communication and sort of move around, whether it's, from the model to the makeup artist to the stylist, and kind of see what everyone's doing. So one of the little tricks that I do is when, let's say, the makeup artist goes, oh, how do you want the makeup? I'll actually get the rack of clothing and I'll pull it next to the model, and then I'll talk about the makeup ideas with the clothing there in mind, so they can see the color palette, they can see how that might fit the model, and then we make those decisions together. Because the trouble you come across when I'm on a photo shoot is if one person only wants to do what they want to do, and they're not working towards a common goal of what works best for this situation. And I've been in shoots where it is either the makeup artist or the stylist or the model or even the photographer who try to sort of push their own agenda without understanding how everyone works together. And that's really the key to a successful shoot, is everyone having that little bit of sensitivity towards, we are all working towards this, and how do we work together towards that as a group, rather than going, this is what I want to do and everyone needs to follow that.
Absolutely. One of the things that we share with our students that really helps everyone to sort of own their own space is to be organised. And as a stylist, a big part of our job actually starts before the photo shoot even begins. That's when you really step into your role. But for us, it's sourcing. So from the very beginning of having that initial mood board or a creative theme that we're working to, a brief, we then source garments that really breathe life into that, whether it's that it's reminiscent of a particular era, or whether it's even a colour or a mood that we're trying to convey. Fashion is this incredible insight into conveying a message, whether that be one that's, romantic or dramatic or very sexualized, or potentially not sexualized at all, and actually something that could be quite ethereal, or clothes help us to tell that story. So as a stylist, it's our ability to really have always more than we need. We always go into a photo shoot with more looks and more options than we need, and for us that's actually about getting in early, setting up the rack, ensuring that we've got the accessories, the footwear, and really everything that we need in a way that is organised and helps us to be able to pull those looks. I mean, sometimes we've got more looks to shoot than we think we've really got the time to do it. So yeah, organisation is key, but a big part of that creative process actually happens before we're there on that day. So once the model is dressed and the makeup is on and the clothes have been styled properly, then what happens?
Well, actually, I really like your comment about being a bit over-prepared, because one of the things that I've seen again and again and again on photo shoots is this might not work or that might not work. And often stylists fall for the trap of loving a piece of clothing without thinking about how it's going to sit on the model. And that's a normal thing, but I think that's where we need to learn to put our egos aside, because I have such a respect for the amount of work that a stylist does before they show up and shoot. And in a sense, I find that they're the least appreciated people on set, because the work happens before before the shoot starts. So when they're there, it's important to set the ego aside, so that it's, once again, like I said before, it's we have to work towards what works.
Yeah.
And it's not just kind of like, well, I brought this was really hard to get, so therefore we're going to use it. And I have seen shoots fail because the stylists have loved the clothing more than what we were trying to achieve. Yeah. And that inflexibility comes through in the work. So I'll put that in a positive way. I guess once the clothing is on the model, the stylist needs to be able to be critical enough to kind of go, does this actually work? And if it doesn't work, to be prepared to make that change. And some of my best images sorry.
Yeah, it's the birds I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Was it under a car alarm?
No, it's birds. They have bird baths here, and then they hang up.
Sorry, I didn't mean to stop.
No, that's
it just
okay.
put me out.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Go from
what I expect from a stylist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from there, I'm going to then connect it to how it's easy to talk about theoretically, but in the training, we
Yeah.
help our stylists to
Yeah.
make those calls.
Yeah, good,
So,
good.
yeah.
So once the stylist has the clothes on the model, what I would hope for the stylist is that they bring a real critical eye to the shoots. So to be willing to kind of go, is this working or not? And if it's not working, to make the changes that are necessary to serve the final shot. And so I've been part of shoots where some of my best shots, what people don't see is the amount of struggle that goes into some of my best shots. We've changed the model 4 or 5 times, redone their hair 4 or 5 times before I've even taken a shot, because we're really trying to get that part right. And you know, the key for me in making a great shot is the thing in front of me should look great.
Yeah.
And for as much lighting skill or camera skill that I might have, I can't change what's in front of me. And if the stylist is on board, if they're sort of focused about their task, they will be focused on making that shot look the best it can, rather than trying to protect their efforts in the styling of clothing that they've brought.
Yeah. I think you raise a really good point, which is that so much goes into actually capturing that shot. And it's often a case of, until you're on a photo shoot and you understand how all of that comes together, often you're quite unaware, because as consumers or as people who, you know, read magazines, we look at the final shot and we can appreciate that. But the beauty is that you never know the struggle that goes into actually bringing that together. And so it can be easier said than done, in the sense that when you describe, you know, pulling a makeup look or redoing something in order to make it work. And for a stylist, for our role to actually determine when something works and when it doesn't, it does take skill. And we're in a generation now, I think, where anyone can, you know, as we see, can pick up a camera or can style a look. And while that's exciting and while that's great, there is an art to actually bringing the elements together to make a winning look actually come to life. So in our training, that's something that we help our students to identify, and I know that's something you really nurture them with, and it's when to make those calls about whether something works and when it doesn't, because both are equally important. When to, you know, push a little bit further to actually bring it to life, and when to actually pull it back. Sometimes, as we know, you know, in the styling, it's in its excess that makes the shot. Sometimes it's actually in the minimal details. And part of that is skill, and then the other is the confidence that comes with developing those skills, where you'll actually back your decision and you'll know that, you know, that jacket might be worn or meant to be worn in a certain way, but actually when we pull it off and when we instead, you know, slump it over the shoulder, or we create something that's more dramatic, that the look actually comes together.
That's
and
right.
We get the shot.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's so crucial for the stylist to actually work with the model as well. I find that if the model feels confident in the clothing, then that will come through in the shot as well. So it's that level of communication that needs to happen all the time. And it's, like I say, it's not being afraid to be wrong, and to kind of go, well, this works, and to have that positive attitude that we'll keep trying, we'll keep pushing until we get there.
Yeah, and the model does have to wear that. I mean, it's a lot of, not only are they physically wearing the clothes, but it is a state that they often need to, you know, maintain, and an energy that they need to keep. And I think that's one of the most underutilized factors of a photo shoot, at least in the beginning of it, is the relationship that can be created between the stylist and the model that is so valuable. And I know for me, when I started, I saw so much bad language that was shared with the model that the stylists they weren't aware, and it wasn't intentional, but how they were just slightly chipping away at the model's confidence without realizing, especially if a garment fit wasn't exactly as we wanted, or perhaps their legs weren't as long as we'd hoped for that particular pant. But it's how we manage that environment, and a lot of that actually rests upon the human behaviour that our students are equipped with in the certificate course, which helps us to be able to build that dialogue and that confidence within the model that then they're even better for the photographer because they wear the clothes the way that we intended.
That's right, and you know, it's a lot of that happens in a space where we're not even aware. So sometimes when you're watching a shoot, and if you just got your arms folded like that, and this poor model is just seeing this sort of negative body language, believe it or not, it actually affects them. You know, like we kind of sort of see models as, well, they're professional, they can do this, but they're humans as well, and they experience times of confidence and times of doubt. And, you know, they need to also feel our support for what they're doing, and to be able to sort of give feedback, positive feedback or constructive feedback, and to own, you know, like your role in it, and how you can help another person feel more confident. I think they're really important skills to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. And that starts in the photo shoots that our students do here in their training. It has to be a high energy environment. Music's always up, energy and vibe is always high. And the models really they're introduced to everyone from the get-go. Everyone knows who's on the team, so everyone feels confident working with each other. And I think actually nurturing those skills or establishing those skills in the very beginning is something that you'll always take forward into your career, whether you're working in, you know, on a commercial photo shoot, or whether it's something that you're doing for an e-commerce store or platform, whether it's something editorial in a studio or on location. Speaking of, they're very different. So when you flick through a magazine, you will always see a combination of studio shots and location shots. So can you break down for us what they are and what some of the challenges and advantages are?
Yeah, and often they're the first things that you sort of consider, is like, should the shoot be done on location or in a studio? And there are advantages and disadvantages of both. One of the big advantages of studio shooting, and why I have a studio, is that it's a space where it doesn't matter whether it's day or night, cold or warm, raining or not. It's a space that we know we can turn up and we can get stuff done, and all the equipment's there, and it's a very productive space. And I actually love the challenge of shooting in a studio, because you've got basically no other external stimulus. You've got a wall, a model, the clothing, the lighting, and from those elements we want try and create something really interesting. And you know, the studios can also be very versatile spaces where you can actually really dress it up as almost like a mini set. I'll bring props in and things like that, and I do love that controllable aspect of it. But there's also something very exciting about location shoots, and you know, when you go walk out on an open field with the perfect sky, you know, nothing beats that, and you get that right combination of light and wind and, you know, all these different elements. It's very exciting, and also it gives you the ability to include a bit more of a narrative into your editorial shoot as well. So you can sort of, you know, move a person from one location to another to give a real sense of journey or a story to it. And you know, it's often a little bit more challenging to shoot in an outside environment or on location, but the rewards are also there, and it gives you quite a variety in the sense of, you know, building up your portfolio to have a combination of studio and location shoots.
Absolutely. I think location, you said something which is narrative and story, and it does help us to breathe life into a story. The other thing is that there's always surprise elements that you can never anticipate, one of which I remember when we were almost charged at by a herd of cows on location in country Victoria on a shoot. And there was elements that were available to us purely because we were, other than a herd of cattle, but it was also, there was timber and there was wood, and there were things that you couldn't possibly source if you tried unless you were there in that environment. And I remember one of the styling elements that actually became really key was, in fact, the blanket that we were wrapping the model in to stay warm in between shots actually became that sort of special little element that then told an authentic story. And the reality was, it was cold, it was damp, it was very visible that that was the case on location. So for these two lovers that were together in this environment, to be wrapped up in a blanket made a lot of sense, even though it wasn't initially one of the styling considerations.
That's right. And an environment can actually inform you of the direction you need to take. And it's something that you can't necessarily control, but if you relinquish that little bit of control to the moment, it can take you into areas where you would not have thought about it yourself. And like I said, it's easier for a model to emote when they're on location as well. There's sort of stimulus to sort of work along with. There's the smell, the weather, and things like that. That from that you try and actually communicate in your image, and you feel in a sense more like a filmmaker than a photographer. And I find that part really exciting.
Interesting. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. For someone who is looking to get into editorial styling, what is something that you would, I guess, highlight to them or encourage that they keep in mind at this point in their journey?
One of the simple things is try and style for something that you're able to style for. So don't make all your inspiration Gucci campaigns when you don't have access to creating looks like that, and don't look down on commercial style looks either, because there's real value in knowing how to do simple looks. And I think that sometimes we sort of have all these sort of lofty aspirations, but until you know how to do the basics, how to do a denim look, how to do a casual, even a fitness look or something like that, there's so much to be learned about how to style something that is simple. And I encourage the stylists to actually sort of start in those areas, because there's so much scope to making the ordinary exciting. And I think that it almost takes more skill in a sense to make the ordinary look great than to start with something great and sort of work out where to go from there.
Yeah, really good point. Our students get to work with you in our advanced training in photo shoots that are, very real photo shoots. We do a combination of studio and we do location. What can they expect? What can someone watching this expect?
So if you're going to style on those days, there's a lot of chaos. And that's actually not necessarily a bad thing. Imagine a room, 30, 40 people all talking fashion at the same time. Is this working, is this not? And there's little bits of paper flying around. This is my idea, this is what I want to do, and things like that. And it's quite a fast-paced day, but it's also quite exciting because it's about broadening people's experience, and it's about, sort of that it's not going to be reality in terms of a real sort of commercial shoot, because in a sense it can be a little bit more controlled than that. But I do love the chaos. I do love the many voices sort of talking over each other and things like that. And that it teaches you some really valuable lessons about how to be collaborative with your ideas, how to be flexible, how to be open to suggestions and things like that. And on the shoot, I do love the overwhelming positive attitudes that people bring to the day, and there's a real sense of I'll help. It doesn't matter if that help relates to your role or not. Some people will go, can I help you carry this to the next location? And I kind of go, that's actually really nice. And that's actually what it takes to put together a really good shoot, is that everyone's willing to chip in and make that day go well, because it can be a long day, and what you want is for that level of energy to be the same or even greater by the end of the day than at the start of the day. And if you can maintain that level of energy, that level of focus, you're going to keep creating great work. And ultimately, what I want for people at the end of the day is to feel like they want to do more of that, and that they go, that was great, that was a really positive experience. I want to go and do more. I want to go and pitch my ideas to a photographer or to a fashion agency to do more shoots and to create more, and to feel for that day to feel like just the beginning of something great.
Yeah, I think that's so positive to hear. It's also so accurate of what the day is like. It's very organized chaos. But positivity isn't always easy to attain in the beginning. At least it wasn't for me. I was working across lots of different shoots and I was really figuring out my way, and there were so many times where I had a question that there was no one to answer it for me around, can I give my opinion here? Or what is the photographer's actual role? When you say that someone wants to help you to carry something, it's so valuable to be able to see so many shoots happen simultaneously and throughout that one day. Essentially, it was created to take away the fear and the uncertainty and also the apprehension that I experienced for the first, I would say, 12 or 18 months of my styling, and instead really give you an opportunity to expose you to see lots of other people's different styling styles and learning styles. And if we can get you to the end of that shoot and, like Jason said, be excited for more, then really that, I would say, is a very solid foundation to going and achieving a sustainable, growing career where you're taking the time and enjoying the process of learning a craft. And that's what styling is. It's a craft, as is photography. So thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
It's really great to hear it from a different perspective as opposed to always the stylist. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, and I hope that was valuable.
Thank you.